Well, hello there. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining us at the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair TV show. KBCR in the house. Yes, yes. If you're watching us for the first time, my name is Michelle Green, and I am the founder of KBCR, Kingdom Builders Credit Repair. And what we do here is teach you credit and financial tips coming from a perspective of a financial advisor, a credit analyst, and also a four-time business owner. So we are going to jump into today's message. But before we do, we are actually going to talk about what is credit. And even before we talk about what is credit, let me just make sure that you are subscribed to the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair TV show channel on YouTube. Listen, you can find us everywhere. We are powered by the CTR Media Network, baby. And the CTR Media Network has us on their streaming app. You can also reach us at Apple and Android TV. You can reach us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire, and pretty much all streaming services available. Also, if you would like to follow us on social media, we are known as kb.michellegreen on all social media platforms. So I just wanted to make sure that you are completely connected, that you set your notifications so you never ever miss an episode of the KBCR TV show here at Kingdom Builders Credit Repair. All right, let's talk about credit because that's why you're here, right? Okay, so credit is basically something, as we always open up and tell you about, credit is the thing that you need in exchange for the money that you don't have right now. So you want to be able to pull from a bank or a creditor, a lender that's going to provide you an excess amount of money, unlimited amount of money in exchange for the things that you need or the things that you want. Maybe you want a luxury car. Maybe you want to have this beautiful home to live in. Maybe you want to provide for your kids. Maybe you want to, travel the world with your spouse. Whatever your situation is, credit is up there with oxygen. Okay. So let's make sure we understand that first off. All right. So credit is basically where we don't have enough money in exchange for the money that the bank or the lender is going to offer to us so that we can get the things that we want. Now, we know that credit ranges as far as scores from a score of 300 to 850. And we want to have a high credit score. So, in order for us to have a high credit score, one of the major things that we have to wrap our minds around is when does the debt get removed that is negatively reporting on our credit reports. So, today we are talking about how long it literally takes in order to get something taken off your credit. But I want us to really keep in mind that even though we have these number of years, this timeline that it takes for the credit to be removed, we also got to understand that if we don't take an action to dispute any of the items from our credit, then we're never going to have those items deleted because the credit bureaus do not automatically delete the items from your credit, man. I'm telling you, listen. I promise you that if you do absolutely nothing, then you will continuously, year after year, have the same items on your credit past the timeline that is required for it to be there. So let's make sure that we first understand that we have to take an action. And that's what Kingdom Builders Credit Repair is here for to do for you. So let's make sure that you get into the program, that you tell your friends and family that they need to be in the program. If you're already in the program, congratulations. Let's make sure that we stay connected so that we can make sure your particular financial portfolio is established correctly with the right credit items and removing the right credit items from your reports. All right, so let's get into this number of years that it takes for an item to be removed from our credit. First off, we want to look at the original issue around having negative credit, and that's going to be a late payment. So when we look at having a late payment on our credit, we're talking about the number of years that it takes to actually have it deleted from your credit without you having to do anything. That is a lie. So, first off, let's establish that it is 7 years for a late payment to be removed from your credit. So, what does that mean? That means that the credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and also a Novus have a rule of thumb that was originated by God. It's actually in the Word of God that says that all debt should be forgiven after 7 years. Did you know that? I'm telling you, like, this was something when I first read this myself in the Word of God, I was like, what? Are you serious? So, this is not something that just came about just randomly. This was the original word, this was the original precept. So, we are talking about a concept, a precept that originated years and years and years ago, so many years ago that we can't even count them, okay? And then we are looking at even to today's time that we still have a 7 year period of time to have a negative late payment on our credit that is scheduled to be removed in 7 years. So 7 years is the ultimate time period. So let's look at other items of debt that would also be removed within a 7 year period of time. So we got the late payments that's going to come off in 7 years. Then we have the charge off account. So we look at the charge off accounts, and let me just go back for just a second because I want us to understand that there is a particular requirement of the late payment. So when you have a late payment, you are looking at a late payment that is based on the missed payment time period of 7 years. So when was the last time that you missed the payment, and then count 7 years from that date? Now, many of the creditors, what they will do is when you have a late payment, if it is something that is already closed, they will continuously every 30 days to report that you are late. So it's almost as if you never ever get the opportunity to remove the late payment from your credit because it's always going to update that you are late every 30 days. So it's like it's never available to come off in that 7 year period of time. But like I said before, here at KBCR, we dispute the items to make sure that we can help you to get those items removed before your 7 year period of time. And with the information that we carry, listen, inaccuracies, we'll talk about all of that in a minute, things that are not consistent, things that are not valid or verified. Those are ways that we would have the items deleted from our credit. But for a late payment, we have to understand that it carries the 7 year period of time to be removed only when we show on the files that we had a missed payment. So from the date that you last missed the payment, 7 years out, that gives the credit bureaus the authority to say, hey, you can get this off in 7 years. But not to worry, we're here to help you get it off in less than 7. All right, the next item that we look at is called a charge off or a write off. Now, we know that a charge off or write off is when we have exceeded 6 months past our time period to make payments. So after you have exceeded 6 months of not making your payment on time, then you will have a charge off on your credit. Now, the period of time for a charge off or a write off to come off your credit is also 7 years. Can you believe that? It's 7 years. But when we look at the charge off write offs, once the creditor says that the debt is uncollectible, meaning that they have closed the account and they no longer allow the account to even be established, like they don't even want to do business with you anymore, even though they were the original company that you first started out with doing credit with. So once that has happened, what is going to take place is they are going to say, okay, 7 years from this date, where the debt was uncollectible, now you have the rights to actually have this taken off 7 years following that date. So we got to understand that it's not just the fact that we got 7 years. We got to understand the timeline between when the 7 years began. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth right now? I hope you are, because this is such a significant thing for us to understand and comprehend going forward with our credit so that we can have a better credit score, right? All right. So the next thing that we're looking at is this is going to be a little different from the rest, but the foreclosures and the repossessions. How many of us have had some situations with our vehicles and then had them come and pick up the vehicle? And some of us have even had a situation where we took the vehicle to the lender because we couldn't afford to pay for it or whatever the scenario has been. Well, many of us, I mean millions of us, maybe even a portion of billions of us, have had a situation where a vehicle had to be either voluntarily repossessed or involuntarily repossessed. But either way, whether it's an involuntary repossession or a voluntary repossession, it's still going to be a repossession no matter what. So we have to understand that foreclosures and repossessions will stay on your credit for also 7 years. But let's look at the foreclosure date. So foreclosures will put the items, they will delete or remove the foreclosure from your credit report after the filing of the actual foreclosure. So what we look at on the credit report is the actual date that the filings took place. So what date is that? What date did they actually say that the repossession was filed? And then we count 7 years outside of that date from for us to tell how long it will take for the item to be deleted. So by federal law, we can get it deleted after the 7 years, but 7 years from the date that the foreclosure was filed. And let's look at the repossessions. So the repossessions, they stay from the original missed payment date, and then that date leading to the repossession. So we're looking at, when did they first start contacting you about the repossession based on what information is on the credit report? What was the actual date that you missed the payment, and what was the last date that that payment was missed? And let's take the 7 year window timeline and add 7 years to that date, and that is when it legally is allowed to be deleted from your credit. So we are talking about, it's not just only 7 year windows for an item to be removed from your credit, but you got to understand every kind of debt and when do they start counting that 7 year time period. It's so crazy, y'all. I tell you, it is so crazy out here in these credit and financial streets that if you don't understand how to play the game, I promise you will not make it, because they try to change these rules and regulations all the time, yet they still stay the same. So usually it's just a tweak here or there that causes us to fail in playing the game correctly. So first off, we want to understand that it's a 7 year window for late payments. It's a 7 year window for charge-offs. It's a 7 year window for repossessions and foreclosures, but we have to know from what date are they calculating that 7 year timeline from. Okay, so let's go on. We also have the collection accounts. So the collection accounts start from the original delinquency date, not when the account was sent to collections. Oh my goodness. So are you telling me, Michelle, this is probably what you're saying out there, right? Are you telling me that they are not going by the date that the original creditor sent this data to the third party collection agency, and they are not counting from when the collection agency got the account? They're counting from when you originally had a late payment. So that is a good thing to understand, but most of us sit around and we don't do anything to repair our credit, to fix our credit, to get that item deleted. So one of the things that I want to emphasize is that with this collection account, this third party company that is collecting, if we're looking at the original date of delinquency, that could have been 2 years or 3 prior to the account even going to a collection agency. And if that is the case, you've already calculated 2 or 3 years into the equation of being able to get this deleted legally by federal law. But most of the time, because we're so afraid to do anything with our credit, we choose not to do anything. And by not doing anything, we are allowing this time period to be in vain for when it could actually come off of our credit reports. So let's change that, y'all. Let's get into the KBCR program today if you're not already in there. And if you are, let's take our credit serious. There are so many clients that we have come through our program that sometimes, they just kind of like, oh, we were just waiting for a miracle. Let's pay attention to what's actually happening with our credit. Let's decide that we're going to change our outcome by really caring about our credit, by thinking about what it is that we are doing to go forward to maintain having an 850 credit score or a 720 credit score, because those are the numbers that tell us that we are in a good standing status. And that will give us the opportunity to be able to buy whatever we want. We want the purchasing power because, like I said before, it's right up there with oxygen. Inhale, exhale. That's where credit is, right up there with that oxygen that you just inhaled and exhaled, okay? All right, so let's go on. When we look at the number of years, we talked about the late payments. We talked about the charge-offs. We talked about the repossessions and the foreclosures and when the 7-year period starts. But let's get into the actual bankruptcies. How many people have filed for bankruptcy? And first of all, we have to understand that there are two different kinds of bankruptcies. There is bankruptcy 13 and there is bankruptcy chapter 7. So with the chapter 13 stays on for 7 years. And this is from the date that the bankruptcy is actually filed. So it is shorter due to partial repayment. When you're dealing with a bankruptcy of a chapter 13, you're not making full payments on the debt that you owed. You're only making partial payments. So one of the reasons why you need to really understand what you're doing when it comes to your credit and bankruptcy is because some of the situations will not allow us to really be able to get back in good standing with a bankruptcy right away than if we just allowed a credit repair company like KBCR to come in and to start disputing and clean up the credit, then establish some new credit and help you to learn how to manage your finances so that you can maintain having a credit score that is high in less than 2 years. Okay, because our program is for 12 months. So when we talk about a bankruptcy, we want to understand that it's going to take for the 7 years for you to technically be out of the hot seat. Okay, it's literally going to take 7 years for you to be out of the hot seat unless you're coming through the KBCR program. Okay, so we have some things that we can help you with to get that thing taken care of in less time than 7 years. But the 13 takes 7 years to be removed from your credit. Then we're talking about the chapter 7. The chapter 7 bankruptcy is going to stay on your credit for 10 years. 10 whole years. That's right. It's not a 7-year period of time, but it is filed from the filing date all the way through till all of the debt has been discharged. That means that you have to fulfill every obligation that is a part of the bankruptcy. And I also want to emphasize that when it comes to credit, we have to understand that bankruptcies, okay, when we have a bankruptcy, it's not just going to show that all of these accounts are included in the bankruptcy, but on your credit report, it's going to separate every single account that you originally had with every single original creditor. And then you're going to have a separate account that shows as what we call a public record. A public record is a record that is obtained by the courthouse that anybody can go down to the local courthouse and see what your financial status is pertaining to any type of bankruptcy, judgment, lien, or levy. They can go down to the courthouse and tell whether or not you are dealing with any type of financial obligations that you have not fulfilled. So that's why it's so important for us to understand how long does it really take for a bankruptcy to be deleted from our credit. It is for the chapter 7, it is 10 years. 10 years from the filing date, and the debt has to be paid in full. It has to be shown as a discharge, which means that it wasn't dismissed, it wasn't just satisfied, it wasn't thrown out of the court. It is something that you actually completely paid off. Okay. So that's something to think about before you consider doing a bankruptcy. If that's what you were thinking about, let's just pause and call 844-522-7552 right now so that you can get into our KBCR program. All right. So 10 years for chapter 7. 7 years for chapter 13 on the bankruptcies. All right, and the next type of account that we're looking at is student loans and also any type of settled accounts. So let's say you were with a creditor and you decided to go ahead and pay that creditor before the account went to a charge-off status. Or let's say that you paid it, but maybe you had some late payments and whatnot. That's also going to be a 7-year window. So with the paid and settled accounts, even if it's paid, there's still going to be a negative payment history for 7 full years. It's still going to be a negative payment history for 7 full years, even if you paid off the account. That's why we try to educate you guys, because we want you to understand that you could be wasting your money paying off debt that's not going to change your actual credit score and cause you to be delayed in your opportunity to receive your new home, your new car, or whatever it is that you're trying to do with your credit. So get into our program today. Stop playing around. Make sure that you take the program serious if you're in it, and let's get your credit to where you want it to be in your whole financial portfolio. We don't just do credit. We do taxes, we do insurance, we do savings, investing money. We do pretty much anything as it pertains to money. So that's why we have information that is so different from other credit repair companies. And that's why we do so much more, because we really care about your financial health. Okay. All right. So back to, how long does it take for the student loans to come off of your credit? Student loans come off of your credit in 7 years from the date of the last default for private loans. So a private loan is where you would receive a like, instead of getting Department of Education or Advantage, you would maybe do a private loan such as Sally Mae, or back in the day, they had some private loans with like Wells Fargo and different banks directly, that you would go and say, I'm going to borrow this money from this bank or credit union in exchange for my student loan debt to be paid. And you would just have to pay the debt back to the lender. But private loans are from the original date of default. The federal loans may vary in when the last payment was made, or that was late, rather, not made, but the last late payment on the unprivate loans or on the regular federal loans, like I just said, Advantage, Department of Education, Nelnet, those are 7-year windows from the date of the last payment that was not paid. So if you look at the credit report and you're viewing, okay, well, when did I start becoming late? Then you're looking at, on the student loan debt, the last date that you defaulted. So was that 2 years ago? Was that a year ago? Was that just last month? We recently found out that the student loan people, the student loan service providers, are no longer allowing us to delay paying our debts back for student loans. So many of us didn't know that at the beginning of May that they were going to start allowing wages to be garnished for not paying our student loan debt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what has happened is that many of us don't realize that after that student loan debt goes bad, it is charged off, it is sent to a third party collection. But if we can catch it before all of that happens, then we can prevent having the whole 7 year window of having it deleted from our credit. We can actually clean up the late payments that we had. So let's get back in good standing with our student loan debt. But just so that you know, it does take 7 years before the student loans are deleted from your credit. However, if you come into our program, we may be able to help you to get it off sooner. But this is also something that you need to know. With student loan debt, because all student loan debt is in some way or another connected to our government, we have to understand that it is still something we are required to pay. So even if you decide that you are not going to pay the student loan debt, it goes to collections, it ends up being charged off or whatever, and you got your 7 day window, you still have to understand that they're going to come after you. They're going to come after your social security check. They're going to come after your regular paycheck. They're going to come after your business because your business is known as an asset and they can collect from your company. So I want you guys to understand that you cannot get around student loan debt. Even if it's deleted from your credit, you still have the responsibility of making sure that you are paying for that student loan debt. Okay? All right. Now, the last part that I want to establish is that when we look at how long it takes for a judgment or a lien or levy to be removed from our credit, it's actually not even supposed to be on our credit. So back in 2018, they passed a law to say that no judgments, no state taxes, no federal tax liens, nothing of a lien of any kind. So no judgments, liens, or levies are allowed by federal law to be on your credit at all. So if you look at your credit report, let's say you pull your credit report from annualcreditreport.com and you decide that, hey, oh my God, I see that I have a judgment on here from a company, or I have a lien from some apartment complex saying that, I had evictions. Then you by federal law can automatically have that disputed and it will automatically come off because it is against the law since 2018 for that to be on your credit report. Yes. Hello, Miss Tracy. How are you doing? And thank you for watching. But listen, we want to make sure that we remove the tax liens off of our credit. We want to make sure that we remove those tax liens from our credit, and we got to understand that they aren't even supposed to be on there. So that's a part of what KBCR does for our judgments and tax liens. And yes, Miss Tracy is asking, how many years did I say for collections to be on your credit? It is 7 years. 7 years for collections and any trade lines that you pay. This is a big one, y'all. This is a big one. The big one is that any type of accounts, when we say trade lines, when we say new lines of credit, those are all the same. In the business world, we call them trade lines. In the personal credit world, we just call them new lines of credit. But they are any type of new credit items that are added to your credit report. So when they are added to your credit report, and let's say you pay these accounts as agreed and you never ever have a late payment, it literally takes 10 years for those accounts to be deleted from your credit. So I know a lot of us think that because we paid off accounts and those accounts are in good standing and we did everything that we were supposed to do, but the account is closed. And when an account is closed, it's not giving you points towards your credit score. The only thing that it can do is show that you had some kind of history with a particular creditor, but it's not giving you points towards your score. So why would they allow that to be on your credit for 10 years? Hey, that's a good question that I don't really know. However, what I can say is that we never ever want to remove the accounts that are in good standing until after we have every single negative account that has been taken off of our credit completely deleted. Okay, completely deleted. We don't want any accounts that are negative before we decide to start trying to delete any positive accounts that we were never late on ever in our history of credit. All right. I hope that you guys learned a little something today and that you begin to understand that this game of credit is so in depth. It's so detailed. It's not just your ordinary, everyday type of answer for every solution, for every problem, rather. It is a detailed answer. You have to know when they are calculating the date that is going to be either 7 years or 10 years for removal of credit items from your credit report. But we here at KBCR will help you in understanding how to read and how to process the information from your credit reports, as well as helping you to delete those negative items from your credit altogether. If you learned something today, put a comment below of what you learned about removing certain items from your credit according to the timeline, and share this with a friend or share this with a family member. Share this with somebody, because we all need to come together and understand that we can do life together and we can have the best outcome ever with our credit and with our finances. Thank you guys for watching today. I am so thankful that you are here, and make sure that you are subscribed and set those notifications, because we want to make sure that when it comes to these notifications, that you know when we are going live every Friday from 12:30 to 1, powered by the CTR Media Network. Thank you again, and see you next week. Bye-bye.